Today, I want to share with you something vital about success that most people will never understand. Success isn't about luck, it's rigged. But not in the way you might think. Before we dive in, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you find value in understanding the hidden structures of power and success, hit that like button and subscribe. This knowledge has transformed thousands of lives, and it could transform yours too. Let me be clear, when I say success is rigged, I'm not suggesting some grand conspiracy. Rather, I'm pointing to a fundamental truth about human nature and social dynamics. Throughout history, in every culture and context, success follows patterns. These patterns aren't random, they're predictable, learnable, and replicable. The average person believes success comes down to luck, talent, or connections. They're partially right, but dangerously wrong in their conclusion. These factors matter, but they're not the whole story. They're merely the visible tip of a much deeper iceberg of strategic thinking and calculated action. Many years ago, while researching powerful figures throughout history, I noticed something striking. Regardless of era or culture, certain principles governed their rise to power. Napoleon, Queen Elizabeth I, 50 Cent, despite vastly different backgrounds, they all understood and applied the same fundamental principles of power and strategic thinking. Today, I'll reveal these hidden patterns and show you how to position yourself to benefit from them. You'll learn why conventional wisdom about hard work and positive thinking isn't enough, and what you need to do instead. This isn't about gaming the system. It's about understanding the system as it truly exists, not as you wish it would be. The first step in rigging success in your favor is developing what I call the power observer mindset. Most people move through life reacting emotionally, making decisions based on fear, greed, or social approval. They never stop to truly observe the power dynamics at play around them. Think about the last time you were in a meeting, a social gathering, or any group situation. While others were focused on what to say next or how they appeared, did you notice who actually held power? Not just formal authority, but real social influence? Did you observe how it flowed and shifted? Most don't, and this blindness costs them dearly. Developing the power observer mindset requires psychological distance. You must train yourself to step back emotionally from situations and watch them as if you were a scientist studying an experiment. Notice patterns of behavior, who defers to whom, what tactics work and which fail. This isn't cold manipulation, it's clarity. In my research for the 48 Laws of Power, I studied historical figures who mastered this mindset. Talleyrand, the French diplomat who survived multiple regime changes while maintaining influence, once said, "In politics, what is believed is more important than what is true." He understood that perception creates reality in social dynamics. The power observer sees beyond the surface. When others see random events, you'll begin recognizing patterns. When others react emotionally, you'll respond strategically. When others blame luck or circumstance for failure, you'll identify the precise moves that led to that outcome and avoid them in your own strategy. This mindset requires practice. Start with small social situations. Observe who speaks most, who interrupts, whose ideas get adopted, who gets credit. Don't judge these dynamics as good or bad, simply observe them. Over time, these observations will form a database of social knowledge that becomes your strategic advantage. Remember, you cannot change what you do not first observe and understand. The power observer mindset is your foundation for rigging success in your favor. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they lack strategic self-awareness. They don't understand their own psychological makeup, their strengths, weaknesses, patterns of behavior, and how others perceive them. Without this understanding, they repeatedly sabotage their own success, never realizing they're the common denominator in their failures. In my book, The Laws of Human Nature, I write extensively about this principle. You must know yourself deeply before you can effectively influence others or navigate complex social situations. This isn't the shallow self-knowledge of personality tests. I'm talking about confronting your shadow, the aspects of yourself you prefer to deny or ignore. Everyone has a shadow. Maybe yours is a tendency toward unnecessary conflict, or perhaps it's avoidance of necessary confrontation. Maybe you seek constant validation, or perhaps you push away those who could help you. Whatever form it takes, your shadow follows you everywhere, sabotaging your efforts in predictable ways, until you face it. Consider Julius Caesar. His brilliance as a military and political strategist is legendary. Yet his shadow, his inability to see how his disregard for Roman traditions threatened the ruling class, ultimately led to his assassination. His blindness to this aspect of himself and how others perceived it proved fatal. Strategic self-awareness requires brutal honesty. You must examine your failures without excuses. Where do you consistently fall short? What feedback do you repeatedly receive but dismiss? What relationships or situations always seem to end the same way? The patterns reveal your shadow. This isn't just introspection, it's strategic reconnaissance. Once you identify your shadow patterns, you can develop countermeasures. If you know you tend to speak impulsively in meetings, you can create a rule for yourself to pause before contributing. If you habitually avoid difficult conversations, you can create scripts and practice them beforehand. Your goal isn't to eliminate your shadow, that's impossible. Rather, you aim to integrate it into your conscious strategy. When you understand your psychological tendencies, you can predict your own behavior in high-pressure situations and adjust accordingly. This self-mastery is what separates those who consistently succeed from those who occasionally get lucky. Conventional wisdom tells us to network by collecting as many business cards or LinkedIn connections as possible. This superficial approach misunderstands the true nature of social capital. In reality, success isn't determined by how many people you know, but by the strategic positioning, quality, and diversity of your social connections. Throughout history, those who rise to positions of influence rarely do so through merit alone. They strategically cultivate relationships with individuals who complement their skills, provide access to different social circles, and offer perspectives they lack. They don't just network, they architect their social ecosystem. Consider the Renaissance painter Raphael. While Michelangelo was undoubtedly his equal in talent, Raphael far surpassed him in social intelligence. Raphael cultivated relationships across Roman society, with other artists, with the Catholic Church, with wealthy patrons. He didn't just accept connections that came his way. He strategically identified who could advance his ambitions and systematically won their favor. Your social network should be intentionally designed, not randomly accumulated. For each person in your core network, you should be able to answer, what unique perspective do they offer? What resources can they access that I cannot? How does their presence in my life expand my possibilities? Remember the concept of structural holes, developed by sociologist Ronald Burt. Those who bridge different social circles, connecting groups that wouldn't otherwise interact, gain tremendous advantage. They access diverse information, spot opportunities others miss, and position themselves as valuable connectors. In every industry and social context, these bridge builders rise faster than those confined to a single social circle. Most people approach relationships with neediness or manipulation. Instead, adopt what I call enlightened relationship building, genuinely seeking to create value for others while strategically positioning yourself at the intersection of different social worlds. This isn't cynical, it's pragmatic recognition of how social influence actually works. Start by mapping your current network. Identify gaps, social circles, industries, or knowledge domains where you lack connections. Then develop a plan to methodically build bridges to those areas, always focusing on mutual value creation rather than extraction. Over time, this strategic approach to social capital will create opportunities that appear as luck to outside observers. Perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of success is timing. We celebrate those who appear overnight successes without seeing the years of positioning and preparation that preceded their breakthrough moment. We admire bold action without recognizing when strategic patience would have yielded better results. In my studies of powerful individuals throughout history, I've observed a pattern. Those who achieve lasting success possess an almost preternatural sense of timing. They understand when to act decisively and, equally important, when to wait. They recognize strategic moments that others miss. Consider Steve Jobs. After being forced out of Apple in 1985, he could have immediately launched a competing company in direct confrontation. Instead, he patiently built Next and invested in Pixar, developing technologies and expertise that would eventually make him invaluable to Apple. When he returned in 1997, it was from a position of tremendous strength. His patience transformed what seemed like career disaster into strategic advantage. Timing operates on multiple levels. First, there's macro timing, understanding, where industries, cultures, and social trends are heading. Those who position themselves ahead of major shifts appear lucky, when in reality they simply read the patterns before others did. Then there's situational timing, knowing the precise moment to make your move within a specific context. In negotiations, relationships, or career advancement, moving too early or too late can mean the difference between success and failure. This requires both strategic patience and decisive action when the moment arrives. Conventional wisdom tells us that success comes to those who hustle non-stop. This frantic approach ignores the strategic value of patience. Often, the right move is to wait, observe, and prepare while others exhaust themselves with premature action. As Lao Tzu wrote, "Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear?" To develop strategic timing, start by freeing yourself from artificial timetables. Society tells us success should follow certain schedules: promotion after X years, financial milestones by certain ages. These arbitrary expectations create pressure that leads to poor timing decisions. Instead, focus on reading the environment accurately and positioning yourself to act when conditions are optimal. Remember, success isn't just about what you do, it's about when you do it. Master timing, and you master one of the critical elements that others mistake for luck. Most people play checkers while the truly successful play chess. The difference? Chess players think several moves ahead, anticipating reactions and planning sequences of action. They sacrifice pieces strategically for positional advantage. They understand that immediate gratification often comes at the cost of lasting success. In my book, The 33 Strategies of War, I explore this principle of strategic thinking. The most successful individuals in any field operate with a time horizon that extends far beyond their competitors. While others chase quarterly bonuses or social media validation, strategic players position themselves for victories that may take years to materialize. Consider the career of Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany. For decades, she methodically built influence, often accepting positions others viewed as unglamorous. She cultivated a reputation for steady competence rather than flashy charisma. When opportunities for leadership emerged, she was perfectly positioned, not through luck, but through patient, strategic cultivation of the necessary qualities and relationships. Playing the long game requires several mental shifts. First, you must overcome natural human impatience. Your brain is wired for immediate rewards, making long-term thinking biologically challenging. You must consciously override this tendency, training yourself to value future benefits over immediate gratification. Second, you must develop scenario planning skills. For any significant decision, ask, if I take this action, what are the likely responses? And how would I respond to those responses? Play out these scenarios several moves ahead, just as chess masters do. This mental simulation identifies potential pitfalls and opportunities others miss. Third, you must cultivate strategic flexibility. Long-term success rarely follows a linear path. When conditions change, strategic players adjust their plans without abandoning their ultimate objectives. They recognize when a tactical retreat serves their larger strategy. They know when to pivot and when to persevere. Begin implementing the long game by selecting one significant goal in your life. Map out a 3-year strategy to achieve it, including milestones, potential obstacles, and contingency plans. Then work backward to identify what actions you should take today that serve this longer timeline. This exercise alone will place you ahead of 95% of your competitors, who remain trapped in short-term thinking. Remember, the greatest power moves often appear as losses in the short term. Master the long game, and you'll achieve success that others attribute to luck or privilege. We've explored strategic observation, self-awareness, social positioning, timing, and long-term thinking. Now we arrive at what may be the most crucial element of all, the sovereignty mindset. This is the internal foundation that supports every external strategy. The sovereignty mindset means taking radical responsibility for your circumstances and outcomes. Not in a naive way that ignores structural advantages or disadvantages, but in a strategic way that focuses your attention on what you can control rather than what you cannot. Throughout history, those who achieved extraordinary success, despite often starting with significant disadvantages, shared this mindset. Frederick Douglass, born into slavery, took ownership of his education and freedom when every circumstance stood against him. Oprah Winfrey transformed childhood trauma and discrimination into fuel for building a media empire. Neither waited for permission or perfect conditions. The average person perpetually seeks validation and permission. They wait for the right time that never comes. They blame circumstances for their failures while attributing others' successes to privilege or luck. This disempowered perspective becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They fail to act strategically because they don't believe their actions matter. The sovereignty mindset rejects both entitlement and victimhood. It acknowledges reality, including unfair advantages and disadvantages, while refusing to use these as excuses for inaction. It recognizes that while you didn't create all your circumstances, you alone are responsible for how you respond to them. This mindset manifests in practical ways. Those who possess it speak differently. I chose this outcome by my actions, rather than this happened to me. They focus conversations on solutions rather than complaints. They invest energy in strategies rather than excuses. They build rather than blame. Developing the sovereignty mindset begins with language. Notice when you use passive constructions that remove your agency. I got fired versus my performance led to termination. Pay attention to how often you blame circumstances or others for your outcomes. Then deliberately shift your language to emphasize your role and responsibility. Next, practice opportunity finding in adversity. When facing setbacks, ask, how can I use this to my advantage? What doors does this close, and what doors does it open? Train yourself to see strategy options even in difficult circumstances. Remember, the ultimate power move is taking ownership of your life. No strategy I've taught you will work without this fundamental mindset. Sovereignty isn't just about success. It's about dignity, agency, and living deliberately in a world that would prefer you remain reactive. Success isn't luck. It isn't rigged against you. It follows patterns that you can learn, master, and bend in your favor. Now go forth and create the success you deserve through strategic action.